The riffs are too repetitive, the lyrics make no sense. All the songs are B-sides and the cover art's a mess. There's so much here to tear apart. Listen to it for a week, now that week has passed. It's Why I Hate This Album podcast with Tim and Garrett.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Why I Hate This Album. I am one of your hosts, Garrett Harvey. With me as always, co-host extraordinaire, Mary Kate to my Ashley, Timothy Richardson. Tim, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Well, that's good to hear. I didn't expect that. Well, this week we are enjoying, Jack White's latest release, Boarding House Reach, released March 23rd, 2018. Tim, how was your week?
Not too bad, really. I made my mom listen to this probably 4 times. She was visiting me.
So your mom had a pretty tough week.
Yeah, she is pissed off. She actually left 2 days early.
I don't blame her. I tried to leave, but I live here, so.
Yeah, we do live together. We don't say that as much as we probably should.
Yeah, well, actually, I'd suggest that we edit this part out entirely.
We live in a 1-bedroom studio apartment together. We have bunk beds, and that is our life.
Not that we have to. I mean, technically, it is a 2-bedroom, Tim. We just never bothered to open that second bedroom. We've got everything we need there. Kitchen, beds, TV, speakers, and a bucket.
Gross.
For cereal.
I don't think that's what you
What have you been doing with the bucket?
Oh my god.
Tim, let's get down to brass tacks. Do you hate this album?
I don't think so. I don't like it, but I can't say I hate it. This is the first time that I might hate it slightly less after listening to it a ton of times.
Okay, I could see how that might be the case.
It does hurt to even be talking about Jack White on this show, though.
Yeah, I never thought we'd see the day.
What about you? Do you hate this?
Well, I was kind of ready to jump right out the gate and say, yeah, I think I hate this album, but you're making me question myself as usual.
No, just go for it.
But I feel bad saying that. What if Jack hears this?
Let me tell you something. Jack definitely will listen to this. He listens to everything that's said about him, and he reads all of his own press.
All right, well, you know what? I'm going to call it a tentative hate.
Okay.
I tentatively hate it. But before we talk about why that might be the case, let me ask you this, Tim. I already know the answer. Is this the first time your Jack has been whited?
I have jacked before, many a time actually. It's probably fair to say that on and off I've been jacking since about 2003, but I've probably only been jacking real hard since 2006 maybe.
Yeah, that's when you began aggressively jacking.
That's right. You and I together, we've seen Jack White and Jack White related bands at least 10 times. We've seen the Raconteurs in Texas, in Florida. We've seen Jack as a solo act in New York City and Kane's Ballroom in Tulsa and Dallas. Just a few months ago, actually, on the Boarding House Reach tour. And I believe you've seen him probably 5 to 10 times without me.
Oh yeah, my jacking comes in somewhere in the realm of 20 to 22 different times.
That's too much jacking. You're going to be
quite sore.
Chapped and sore.
It's more of a chafe. We don't need to get into it. I mean, I'm right there with you. This is going to be sort of a joint kind of personal history segment, I think, because we're so tightly intertwined. We go way back with this guy. It's safe to say we love Jack White. And you know what? I know that there's a whole contingent of our listeners that are just flabbergasted by that, because we don't talk about bands that we love often. And I know there's a whole segment of people out there that fucking hate this guy. And that's fine. Like what you like. However, for whatever reason, we enjoy the Jack White. And then came this situation. And we'll obviously get into it, but as you mentioned, Tim, we've traveled all over the country. I've been to New York, I've been to San Francisco, and everywhere in between to see this guy play, and it's a hell of a live show in all his incarnations. I think you have the perfect story to frame just how much of a dedicated Jack fan you are, and how poor of a friend that I am.
In 2010, we both lived in Dallas, and we were going to go see the Dead Weather in Austin. While we were down there, we decided to go rock climbing the afternoon of the concert, as we did probably 100 times plus in college.
Easily.
Yeah, and so we had to sneak into this park. It was under construction, that there was a fence around it, so we hiked through the woods for about a mile and then went rock climbing. On my first attempt up this wall, I slipped and fell, and I kind of half landed wrong. I mean, I clearly landed wrong.
You didn't land right.
I mean, I was immediately aware that I had broken my ankle pretty severely.
Everyone within 200 meters that had ears was aware. That is to say, me and some chipmunks were very aware that you had severely broken your ankle.
There was I don't want to call it a snap. It was more of a crunch, but it was broken real good. So Garrett, being presumably at the time I believed him to be a good friend, he went around, hiked back through the woods, and brought the car as close as he could to the fence, which left me to crawl on my hands and knees before climbing to the top of the fence and then just kind of falling over the other side onto my back, where I then got into his car. And then Garrett, being the helpful person that he is, wrapped my ankle in toilet paper and duct tape, and we went to the show.
For safety.
For safety. My original plan at the show, I believe, was to jump on my good leg for the whole show in a riotous crowd.
Yes, you seem to think that was going to work out just fine. Well, you had the toilet paper and duct tape.
That's true. I was pretty well protected. Luckily, someone took pity on us and gave us VIP seats so we could sit and watch the show from safety. The next morning, I woke up, I slapped Garrett awake, and I made him drive me back to Dallas to go to the emergency room. And, I mean, from there, it's a pretty long story. We don't need to get into the details, but suffice to say, I would not walk again for the next 8 months. I was on crutches for 8 months. Part of the reason that was so long was because we didn't go to the goddamn emergency room soon enough.
Yeah, that did play a role, didn't it?
Even his least good band was enjoyable enough for me to risk permanent mutilation to see for an hour or so.
Now, in full disclosure, there's a chance that somebody somewhere along the way oiled up those rock climbing shoes.
Oh, this is 100% Garrett's fault. He had the rock climbing idea. He had the oiling up the shoes idea. He had the pushing me idea. He had the not going to the emergency room on time idea.
That was me.
You're a monster, and you crippled me possibly for life.
Listen, I don't know who oiled up your shoes. I did say, we're going to the concert, right? That part is true.
That is a direct quote.
I did wrap up your ankle in duct tape and toilet paper like a doctor. And to be fair, you drew first blood. Not 2 years prior, you insisted that we go rock climbing after taking in a lovely comedy show by nationally renowned and beloved star Bill Cosby. Oof. Different time, folks. Different time. We didn't know about the unpleasantness. You insisted we go. Those shoes were slicker than I remember them being, and I snapped my ankle. Now, the difference being, despite whatever the doctor said with his CT scan and his x-rays and bone pieces, I toughed it out. I walked it off, Tim.
It was a very different injury.
Yes, no, yours was devastating and life-altering, and therefore making it a very funny prank. But we say all this, folks, to give you a true idea just how big of fans we were, are, hope to be again of this guy and his various incarnations. Now, whether you're a Jack White fan or not, doesn't really matter. I think we can all agree that this is the worst thing he's ever done, with the small exception of that time he created a single with the Insane Clown Posse. Oh, to make matters worse, Tim, not only do I own that Insane Clown Posse single, what in the world, I own this album on vinyl. This sneaky bastard sold it to me before I ever heard it.
You are a sucker.
Wait a minute.
This is why people online have been saying, not Tim's a sucker, but Garrett is in fact the one of us who is a sucker.
I got suckered. You are a sucker genetically. There is a huge difference.
Hashtag Tim is a sucker genetically? I don't think that works.
Hashtag sucker for life. Ooh, hashtag sucker from birth.
I like it.
Just know that when that is used, they're talking about you.
You cannot prove that.
Just a weird side note. Whoever started hashtagging Tim's arms wide open from the Creed episode, bravo. You made my day with that. But back to the task at hand. Take us on a journey, Tim, where I assume you'll be doing this largely from memory.
I didn't do any research. This is 100% stuff that I already knew.
Yeah, the boys at the lab, we gave every one of them the week off, obviously with the exception of Brad, who is not done cleaning the toilets. I want you to be able to eat off of them. And then I'm going to make you a grilled cheese and you're going to eat off of them.
Yes. That notwithstanding, Jack White was born a piranha-toothed little boy named John Anthony Gillis in Detroit as the youngest of 10 children, or the seventh son, as he likes to say, to obviously a Catholic family. His parents both worked for the Archdiocese of Detroit. He actually thought about becoming a priest and was all lined up to go to the seminary, but he didn't go because he decided to go to a public high school in Detroit.
Rumor has it he had a brand new amp. He was fairly certain he wasn't allowed to bring his amp to seminary, so he said, fuck it, I'll just go to public school.
I don't think 14-year-old boys should be allowed to go to the seminary. I'm just saying...
Listen, you and I are the first to say nobody is inviting sexual assault, but a young man who is wary in the ways of the world, voluntarily going unattended to the seminary.
No amp to defend himself?
Well, amp or no amp, he's walking into a lion's den.
He starts playing instruments that his older siblings would kind of just abandon. That began with drums that he found in his attic. He was a fan of classical music early on, and then that morphed into classic rock and early blues bands, Son House, Robert Johnson, that kind of thing. He started as an apprentice upholsterer with Brian Muldoon, who got him into punk rock. He was actually in a short-lived band called The Upholsterers with him, which was, I believe, the first time he played guitar.
Brian was already a drummer, and so he's like, well, I'm older, and so figure it out, dummy.
Yeah, and he did.
God, he figured it out hard, Tim.
Yeah. As a senior in high school, he met Meg White, and then in a move that Lena Dunham certainly would have approved of, he took Meg's last name whenever they got married and became Jack White. He started his own furniture shop right after that, but it didn't last long because of unprofessionalism, I guess. He would write bills in crayon. He was constantly jacking around that shop.
Yeah, you want some poetry written on the inside of your newly upholstered chair? Well, you're getting it, because I'm a fucking weirdo.
That's right. He played with several local bands in Detroit, mostly as a drummer, but whenever he was playing guitar at home, Meg started playing drums with him.
It's unclear whether or not he forced her.
We'll say he forced her. Allegedly, Jack White forced Meg to play the drums against her will.
I mean, it adds up.
So in 1997, they decided to form the White Stripes. For unclear reasons, they would publicly claim to be siblings for the next close to a decade.
Yeah, that part, in retrospect, while kind of quirky and interesting while it was going on, is just downright creepy with a little bit of time and perspective. You know, I actually have a vinyl copy of their very first show at the Gold Dollar in Detroit from 1997.
I do know
Curiously good. Okay, well, stop going through my records.
Stop letting me listen to your records. We live in the same room. At some point, I'm going to get bored of my stuff. I don't have that much of it, and your stuff is better.
Tim, we have set up a policy. You are to follow the policy. You will fill out the application. I will review the application to listen to the record, and then I will remove the record for you because you've got grubby little hands.
I do have Slipknot fan hands.
Taste the crow. Point being is, don't touch my stuff.
All right, well, I'm going to touch it a little whenever you're not around. They played around Detroit for a couple of years and eventually would sign to Italy Records. And as we all know, they released their first record in 99. They get divorced in 2000, but they keep playing together, and they would release a string of some of my favorite albums of the past 20 years. You've got Distill, White Blood Cells, Elephant, which was obviously their big breakthrough, Get Behind Me, Satan, and then...
Which seemed to sort of be a fuck you to the big breakthrough album.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a weird album that I love.
Yeah, but it is very different. After that, Jack got together with Brendan Benson and a couple of other guys he knew from other bands, and they formed the Raconteurs. And also scattered in here is the score for Cold Mountain, which, if you like good country, blues, folk music, you should really check that out, because it's great.
Oh, it's awesome.
The Raconteurs released an album in 2006. Then Icky Thump came out with the White Stripes in 2007. And that was, to my ear, it's his most complex album. It's clearly evolution of what he was doing with the White Stripes. And it's kind of a concept album.
Absolutely.
And then Meg had some sort of nervous breakdown on their tour and quit halfway through, destroying our chance to finally see the White Stripes.
Yeah, to this day, it haunts me. Now, in her defense, Tim, he seems like a real bear to get along with. As much as we enjoy Jack White, not including this album, I don't know that we could be friends. He seems to have mellowed actually quite a bit in recent years.
Yeah, but I think artistically that's become a problem.
Right.
After the White Stripes break up, he continues with the Raconteurs. They release another album in 2008, and a lot of people don't like it. I think it's great.
It's a good album.
He would also appear in the documentary It Might Get Loud, I think the same year, where he sits down with Jimmy Page, The Edge, and they kind of talk about being designated successive generations kind of guitar gods.
Right, well, everybody gives bizarre sideways glances about why The Edge is there.
The next year, he would form the Dead Weather as their drummer and released a couple of albums. After that, he decided to strike out on his own, releases Blunderbuss in 2012, a follow-up 2014 Lazaretto. Also during this period, he marries Karen Elson. They have a couple of kids who Jack makes dress like him, and by that I mean makes wear old-timey suits, and sometimes he forces them into... Does he make
Suitcases?
them get into suitcases, or do they get into suitcases on their own?
I'd like to think it's on their own, but it seems unlikely, given that he's forcing them to dress like 1930s devils.
That's true. He didn't do too much for the next 3 years, and then he comes out with this, obviously, this year, Boarding House Reach. And in March of last year, he did several interviews where he talked about the process of writing this new music. He apparently set up shop in an apartment in Nashville and was recording on a reel-to-reel tape recorder.
Now, did you happen to note some of the great artists he drew inspiration from when forming the concept of these songs?
No.
Oh, former guests of the show, Kanye West and Miss Nicki Minaj.
That makes sense.
Yep. 'Cause,
You know what? I think I understand this album.
So that brings us up to now, right? Mm-hmm. Well, let's get right into it, Tim. What was your impression of this album?
You know that Cubs picture where Jack White is sitting at a Cubs game looking like the most miserable person in the world?
Yeah, the saddest Cubs fan in America.
Yeah. This album made me feel like Jack White looks in that picture.
A pouty 4-year-old being forced to sit through something he has no interest in.
This album feels like he listened to a bunch of episodes of this show and then was like, well, there's a good outline for an album.
Absolutely.
Part of the problem is, I think, summed up by the fact that there are 24 people who are not Jack White playing on this album.
Yeah, and that is a massive departure from his approach in every other successful album he's ever created.
I think he needs to listen to the White Stripes song Little Room. That song outlines the problem of this album pretty nicely.
Yeah, I call this the Hypocrisy album, which is why, Tim, rather than the typical fun fact, I bring to you, this episode only, a Jack White Hypocrisy fun fact. All right. Hypocrisy fun fact number 22614. Before taking more of a hip-hop approach and inspiration from the likes of Jay-Z, Kanye West, and Miss Nicki Minaj, Jack White could be quoted as saying, "Rap music is just novelty music. It's about women, money, and cars, and every other word is bleeped out. It's just so meaningless."
Can I give you some advice on your fun facts? I know that you are the creator of the fun fact. No one had ever done that before.
Tread lightly, Tim.
However, if you mention a company name before it, or if you're able to work in some sort of product, a lot of times you can give those companies to give you money. Just a thought.
You know what? You're so close to getting replaced by Brad, you have no idea. You want to be the new Brad? You want to go clean those toilets and then eat grilled cheese and tomato soup off those toilets?
Do you want to record this with Brad?
I don't want to. Of course I don't want to. I can't even be in the same room. I don't even understand this, but his face stinks.
It does. It smells like toilet tomato soup.
Oh, then I can't explain it.
Some other problems. He raps. There's synthesizer. There's at least one record scratch.
I have no problem with rapping. I have no problem with synthesizer. I have a huge problem with how both are being done in this album.
There are at least 3 too many spoken word tracks.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, Tim, now, is your favorite part of Jack White his spoken word work?
Yeah, I've always preferred his interviews to his actual music.
Yeah, if you could just get rid of the guitar and the drums and the bass and any semblance of singing, just talk to me. And ideally, if it could be gibberish, that's even better.
This whole thing was clearly built on Pro Tools in a way that would make Axl Rose jealous.
This brings me to my next point. I now think I might have some sympathy for those angry young men that began shouting when Dylan went electric. Because this is the album in which Jack White goes electric. I guess we should say he goes digital, but the point remains salient. God, Tim, we're barely into this thing, and I gotta pull up another Jack White Hypocrisy fun fact. Jack White hypocrisy fun fact 446122278. Jack White prides himself only recording in analog, cutting his tape himself with a razor blade. It's, quote, sort of like I can't be proud of it unless I know we overcame some sort of struggle, he told the New York Post.
I agree with your Bob Dylan analogy. He never really went back to that acoustic thing that those people wanted. So I want to give a more hopeful analogy. Neil Young's 80s output. And I hope to God it's not a decade, but at the end of this nonsense, there's a freedom waiting for us.
I don't think all is lost here. This is my main struggle with this album. I want Jack White to evolve. I feel as though he's trying feverishly to escape the formulaic nature of what people expect of him, and I appreciate that.
Sure. I actually had to check to make sure this wasn't some sort of Danger Mouse prank. Jack's worked with him before. I had to make sure he wasn't secretly the producer on this. But I kind of think he went full Beefheart in the digital age.
Excellent analogy.
Or maybe he was trying to make Odelay, but he didn't really understand what made Odelay great.
He got trapped somewhere between Odelay and Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots, and the end result is just a goddamn mess.
I think another problem might be too much time off. Not like Chinese Democracy, probably more like Portugal the Man's Woodstock. It seems like he was just hanging out for 3-4 years, and then one day woke up and was just like, oh shit, my job is to release music. I better kind of scrape something together real quick. Don't really have any ideas. That can't be a problem.
Well, that's sort of the irony, too, is that this isn't quite a hypocrisy fun fact. It's more of an irony fun fact, which was obviously not a thing. That would be fucking stupid.
That would be stupid, Garrett.
Every one of his albums he tries to complete at a feverish pace. This one, it's his own little Chinese Democracy. He worked all over the country, multiple different people had input, multiple different studios. The end result is something overwrought, underthought, and a jumbled mess. Just put something to fucking tape, Jack, and release it.
So I mentioned the spoken word earlier, but a lot of these songs sound like they were intended to be intros to actual songs or interludes, and that's fine. I like Old Mary, Full of Grease from the Dead Weather. The weird interlude on Icky Thump is pretty great, but the sheer volume on here is insane. You can't have an interlude into a different interlude. I will not allow it. On a rap album, this would be the skits.
Yes, this would be the proverbial voicemail or hilarious phone call. And that actually brings me to maybe my final point in the general thoughts is that this is not an album. This is at best, to use the parlance of our time, a mixtape. Not good enough to be released as an album. Here's some shit I've been monkeying around with. Maybe one of these will be a hit. Enjoy.
This whole thing would be fine as an experiment or a demo. If you wanted to get these new sounds, try these new things out, maybe get some new ideas, that's fine.
Many of these songs are multiple songs where the listener does not have the benefit of getting to hear the unplayed parts. I think there might have been a mix-up at the studio. Is there a chance that this entire album has just been shuffled among itself?
You think like somebody dropped it in some sort of like meat grinder or paper shredder and then tried to scrape it together? It's a Brad move, is my point.
Oh yeah, somebody bratted this thing hard, but none of the things you just said, you fucking moron.
You're saying that you don't believe that around where Jack keeps his masters, there's not a meat grinder just sitting there for unknown reasons.
Of course there is. But as we noted, this was all done in Pro Tools. So I think somebody let their 4-year-old sit at the keyboard and taught him cut and paste.
A cat was walking across the keyboard.
Yes, exactly. I think we figured it out. You ready for this song by song?
Yep.
All right. Track number 1, Connected by Love.
This was the first single, it was the first part of this album that I'd ever heard, and it's just not a good song. I remember being really worried about this album after hearing that this was his lead single.
At best, it was just disappointing. Now, to his credit, this is a song.
Sure.
It's got all of the parts and pieces that you'd come to expect from music, such as music, and instruments, and singing.
I do like some of the guitar and organ work on this song.
Sure thing.
During those back-to-back organ and guitar solos, it's a pretty enjoyable piece of music. Problem is, it's all Pro Tooled to shit, and it's a jumbled mess on either side of that.
Yeah, that's going to be the case here a lot. I mean, honestly, this is such a low bar, though. The parts we're talking about, Tim, are the parts that are music.
Yeah, that's true. It's the parts that are recognizably conventional music.
I will say I was slightly alarmed at the gospel backup singers. You don't see them coming.
I like them, though. I
got
have
no
no problem with
them.
that. I think maybe the biggest insult that I'm going to have to hurl his way here, the lyrics. They're meaningless. It kind of sounds like he was cheating off Scott Stapp's homework at points.
Low blow, Tim.
Yeah, I know. I feel so bad saying any of this about somebody whose music I generally love, but this is not the Jack White I've come to know and love.
No.
Let me give you an example here. Because I know we're connected by love. Yes, I know we're connected by love. Yeah, I want to be directed by your love. Connected by love.
Let me ask you a question, Tim. What are we connected by?
Love.
It's not that.
Oh.
You think this is love?
I have known
we
nothing
share
else.
a lease.
Well, in all fairness, I don't have good enough credit to be on that lease. Technically, I'm squatting on your couch.
I mean, it's not hatred. I don't hate you. I want you to know that. This is a big step for me, so stop laughing. But I can't say we're connected by love. Obligation?
Sure.
We are obliged to create this stupid show.
Yeah, we mistakenly released it. A few people liked it, and now we can't back out.
Well, yeah, because every week more people seem to like it.
Yes.
We appreciate the downloads. Even though you have locked us into some sort of life sentence with one another that can only end in at best, murder-suicide. Almost certainly, though, I'm just going to stab this guy with a fork.
A murder and then not a suicide.
Well, sometimes the second part doesn't happen. You won't mind, trust me.
So it sounds like, you know the story about Paul McCartney writing Yesterday, where he comes up with the melody and doesn't have any words for it, so he just sings about scrambled eggs for a while?
Yes.
This seems like Jack forgot to write actual words.
Well, the lyrics were all placeholders. He kept in the placeholders.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd buy that. It's crazy that we're even being remotely cynical about this song, because this thing is a gold standard compared to what we're going to be dealing with here shortly.
This is probably the second best song in this album.
I completely agree.
It's kind of a shame, too, because on this song, there are ideas that could be good if they were fleshed out. The narrative arc starts with him presumably demanding his lady acknowledge his immature horseshit, and then at the end of the song, he decides it might be better for her if she was with somebody that's, not terrible.
Boy, you crossed a lot more bridges than I did with this song. I just checked out.
It does end with the sound of computer programs fucking.
Yeah, it does. Not the last time we were going to hear the intercourse of two PCs.
Gross. Would you like to hear my mom's thoughts on this song?
Oh, absolutely. The newest segment, and possibly the only time we're ever going to be able to do this, Chris Richardson Hot Takes.
Yes. So she told me, after the robots stopped fucking, she just looked over at me and goes, "It must be really hard work to date Jack White. It seems like a lot of drama, and it seems like it would be one big depressing argument. I don't think I could cater to his neuroses."
Wow, such insight.
It is. She understood this album far better than I did. I have to give it to her.
I mean, we might need a third chair in here. Track number 2, Why Walk a Dog? Finally, Tim, we are asking the important questions.
I personally have never owned a dog. Therefore, I have to defer to you on this. So I'm going to ask, is there a concrete reason to walk your dog? Because the obvious answer would be the urination and such, but I feel like it would just be easier to divide your house in half in some sort of I Love Lucy move and just fill the dog's side with sod grass or astroturf and just let him be.
There are actually a myriad of reasons, and I do want to put a fine point on this. The song opens with, "Why does a dog need to be walked?" So many reasons. I won't bore the listener with all of them, but
top
I mean,
5.
Okay. 1, they need exercise.
Okay.
2, it's cruel to keep an animal indoors constantly. 3, the feces. It's going to add up quickly, faster than you expect. And I feel like this is cheating a little, but that's okay. The urine. There's going to be a great deal of that as well. So even if somehow you get your mind wrapped around living in a house full of dog waste, at best, you're still going to be walking. I mean, you're going to need sandals because dogs will piss everywhere.
Okay, that's 4. Give us another.
All right. Number 5, kind of the point of having a dog is to play with that dog. And if you have a somewhat nice house, assuming it's not covered in dog feces and urine, you should best take him outside, lest he end up being put through a wall or television. I like to roughhouse with Batman.
Yeah, that's fair. We should point out at this point, your dog's name is Batman.
Oh, right. Otherwise, you might think I'm an insane person.
Yeah. I tried so many ways to make this a metaphor for something. The state of humanity, maybe. It really just seems to be a song about the morals of owning pets.
Right. Which brings me to my next Jack White hypocrisy fun fact. Jack, a self-professed dog lover, has owned 2 dogs, Astro and Jasper, who were both nicknamed after the White Stripes song Astro, and on multiple occasions while giving interviews has professed how much he enjoys dog ownership and the companionship he finds from them. Apparently that, again, was before I assume he suffered some sort of head injury.
It does.
And decided to go in the exact opposite direction of everything he's ever said and done.
I do think it's funny that he just doesn't like cats.
Well, you know what, Tim? I want to address this. It's unclear to me if he doesn't like cats. I think specifically he does not care for cat memes. The line is, these cats seem to blow everyone's mind but mine. And
he does not
says,
care for your Instagram feeds, listeners.
Yeah, I don't care how many pieces of bread that cat's face is going to poke through. It is not
I want to
adorable.
see some cats poking their face through. You know what? You should tweet at us your cat pictures.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I'm not Jack White. I want to see all the cat pictures. But he asks the question after that line, what is so funny about beasts above understanding? Which is doubly ridiculous. One, because he does seem to not like cat memes, which without cat memes and pornography, what is the internet?
Mostly us.
Oh, right. And then secondly, this is galling because clearly it's a takeoff of the Elvis Costello song, What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding. So good work, Jack. Clever play on words in your song about why do you have to take the dog out you've taken the responsibility of owning.
So that begs the question. We're assuming Jack does in fact own these dogs.
Or has at some point.
We're also assuming the fact that he doesn't understand why or even if they should be taken outside, ever.
Oh no.
Is it possible that Jack White lives atop some sort of throne made of dog shit?
I was going to say a mountain.
It was a mountain, and then he carved it into a throne so he has some place to sit and eat his Fruit Loops.
Carved?
Well, Doug, I don't know.
I was going to say molded. At best fashioned. I mean, one thing about dog poop is it's pretty malleable.
Yes.
What are we talking about?
I don't know. Dog
What
poop,
is he talking about?
You know, the weird thing is we're talking about dog shit, but for once, we're talking about something that's actually relevant to one of these songs.
How sad for us.
Yeah. Let me give you a few comments from the folks at Genius Lyrics.
Oh boy.
As a dog lover, I am somewhat bothered by this song. I mean, providing loving homes for puppies in need is unethical? I only adopt rescue dogs.
That seems to be taking a particularly high horse. I wonder how he feels about horses. How does he feel about people owning them?
I mean, if they're rescues, presumably okay?
Not the Genius Lyric guy, you asshole. Jack White.
Oh, I don't give a shit. Can I give you my mom's take on this song?
Absolutely.
I had to turn this up because I really wanted her to hear the lyrics, at which point she just began laughing and said, I hope you didn't give him any money for this.
So as you mentioned at the top of the show, I saw Jack White twice on this tour, once in Dallas, once in Austin with you and a good buddy of ours, meaning that I purchased in total 5 tickets. And then, of course, you guys reimbursed me, and then I took my girlfriend to here in Austin. 5 tickets. For every one of the tickets purchased, mailed to my house, was a CD copy of this fucking album. After marveling at how bad the album was, I then put it where it belongs, in a large garbage bin.
Fair enough.
Track number 3, Corporation.
Thinking about starting a corporation.
What the hell is this song about?
Well, Tim, it seems to be about starting a corporation.
Are you with me?
I am not.
Oh,
I mean,
who-
ironically,
Garrett.
what?
Who's with me?
Something I noticed the second time I saw him, he's trying super hard when he plays this song live to really turn it into the next Seven Nation Army.
It didn't work because, again, he doesn't need another corporation.
Right, so, I mean, this brings me, I can't even believe I'm saying this, Tim. This brings me to the Jack White hypocrisy fun fact number 22448-3. Not only did Jack White start Third Man Records in Nashville, Tennessee, which has slowly grown to turn into a massive empire, largely responsible for the resurgence of love of vinyl here in America and around the world, he then some years later decided to start yet another corporation where he makes baseball bats not just for consumers, but for also Major League Baseball players, including Texas Texas Rangers. So I guess he's just announcing that soon he will be making a new corporation. Tim, for $100, what would you like to see as Jack White's next corporation?
Suits.
Ooh, really good idea.
I just would like to own one of those suits, matching him and his child. Last part got a little creepy. My point is, he dresses great. His son doesn't want to dress great, but he does. And
You shouldn't assume that.
Garrett, he's got sock garters.
Yeah, he does actually have sock garters. I only know that because you could see his leg when he climbed into a suitcase. It might get loud, doesn't make any sense.
I assume he forces his son to sleep in a suitcase.
Or at least strictly travel in one. It's a great way to save on airfare.
That's true. It is cold under there. I have been poor in my life. I have dressed as a puppy dog. I have gotten into a cage, and I have gotten shipped across the country.
I have definitely checked you as luggage.
Yes.
So, Tim, you asked, what is this song about? And even if you were trying very, very hard to figure it out, in this 5-minute and 30-second song, you are going to be waiting until the 3-minute and 11-second mark to hear a single word spoken.
Yeah. I put a lot of energy into trying to decipher this. Near the beginning, yeah, I'm thinking about starting a corporation. Who's with me? Nowadays, that's how you get adulation. Who wants to start a corporation? I feel like he's trying to say something political, something about society. I don't know what it is.
Well, clearly, Tim, this is a vicious takedown of a corporate society driven by materialism, sung by a man that is responsible for starting multiple multi-million-dollar business empires. So he is living a Jack White hypocrisy, fun fact.
Excellent.
Can we talk about the screaming?
Yes, please.
I don't know if it began as the guitar. It doesn't really matter. The point is, if somehow you manage to derive some enjoyment from this song, don't worry. At some point, Jack will begin screaming in a pitch that makes bats sound pleasant.
The thing that drove me the craziest about this is that I listened to the majority of this on headphones, and it is exclusively in one headphone, but it alternates back and forth. So
Right.
It's dizzying. A lot of the time, I listen to this whenever I'm driving. You hear that high-pitched squeal, and I'm slamming on my brakes. I'm veering off the road. My mom's screaming because she doesn't know what's happening.
I dug really deep on this song, and it made no sense to me that he was trying to do this vicious takedown of corporate culture when, again, he's such a great businessman. So I think I might have figured out what this song is about. Corporation is code for cult. Jack White might be starting a cult. Here is my evidence. The lyrics read, "Yes, I'm thinking about buying all the empty cots and making one giant army. Who's with me? I'm gonna buy up all the empty lots and make one giant farm.
Oh my
Who's
God.
with me?
Oh
yeah,
my God.
You know what I'm talking about. Who's with me?" We got a real Hale-Bop situation going on here. Heaven's Gate, move over. Here comes Jack White.
In 2017, I would have moved out to that farm. I would have drank whatever he told me to drink. I would have worn his suit. I would have gotten in his suitcase.
Would you like to join Jack White's corporation?
Not now, no.
I like that the only reason you're unwilling to join a cult is because you don't believe in the music made by the leader.
The most recent album. If the next album is good, I'll reconsider.
Good to know.
I love not having to make decisions. It's great. I don't want to choose what pants to wear. I've got a lot of ridiculous socks.
That certainly explains why you wear nothing but slacks and a white polo shirt at all times.
I was really hoping you were going to say that certainly explains why you wear nothing but socks.
It makes movie night in the old studio apartment a little uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, I'm always holding that popcorn.
Telling me the good bits are at the bottom.
There are stretches in this song where I really like the music. Then it breaks down into bongos. There's yelling "Who's with me?" There's yelling just "woo." But I will say, whoever is doing the percussion, I don't particularly care for it, but they're very good.
I mean, that I think can easily be said. All of the people playing instruments, when instruments are actually being played, are great. I felt like this song would work best in the soundtrack potentially to a Guy Ritchie film or any movie in which a heist might be happening. Perhaps a montage where you've got to get the briefcase and then scan the fingerprint. And I'm thinking sort of a Snatch scenario or possibly even a Layer Cake because there's, as you mentioned, big stretches where it's just bongos. So that can be a guy walking to the next building or something.
The montage is the perfect way for this song to exist.
Unfortunately, I had no montage to watch.
Musicians need to stop making albums that are the soundtracks to movies that don't exist.
It would certainly make it easier to enjoy them. All right, guys, this is where it starts to get tough. Track number 4, Abulia and Arcasia.
Wholeheartedly in this extreme abjuration.
I want to say that when the music began, because there's music at the start, and we should say up top, this is a spoken word track, not a song. When it begins, I thought, oh my God, this is sort of like a remix of St. James Infirmary Blues.
Yes.
I can't wait for this.
Yeah, it's St. James Infirmary Blues played on like violin maybe?
Yeah, with like a gypsy flair.
Mm-hmm. My only thought really with this is, what the fuck is this?
I mean, would you like to give the explanation of why it exists?
Sure. In Jack's own words here, I wrote this poem for C.W. Stone King to recite. It was basically me trying to find as many words as I could that I wanted to hear him say because I love his speaking voice. How can I make the most complicated poem about wanting a cup of tea? That became my goal. And I have to say, this whole album might be a goof.
You know, it's been weeks since we brought that back into the equation. This really could be a goof. It's a lark at best. So this reminded me of something. I don't know if you're going to have a clue what I'm talking about. Did you ever see The Matrix?
Yeah.
Did you ever see the slightly worse second Matrix?
Yep.
And did you ever see the incredibly awful third Matrix?
Yep.
Do you remember at the end of that third movie when he meets the architect?
I think that's at the end of the second one.
It's unclear because they're garbage. But
yeah, I may have watched them out of order, honestly.
Doesn't really matter. The point being is whichever movie that was, when he meets the architect, I was reminded immediately of that scene because it seemed as though when they wrote it, they were just trying to find the most complicated way to say whatever it is they were trying to say in that movie in that scene. Do you remember all of the incredibly multisyllabic words he used just to say, it's all happened before and it's going to happen again? And for the folks who didn't listen to this album, and good on you, I'm going to give you just a sampling of the actual words from this spoken word track because I think it helps to really clear up why we're just so goddamn angry.
Sure, and we should point out before you do this that I was originally planning to do this, but based on my lack of being able to read simple words, Garrett banned me.
I renounce wholeheartedly in this extreme abjuration that which I repudiate so vehemently. Adamantly unrepentant, implacable, and intractable, I abdicate with inexorable pleasantry. In this solemn refutation, this most earnest repudiation, I shall not negate that which I state irrevocably, but I do it so gently. Thanks, Jack. That's a good use of my time.
Can I give you my mom's thoughts on this?
Chris Richardson, hot take.
I wonder what his childhood was like. That couldn't have been a positive experience. So, what is a podcast? Am I going to be on it?
Oh, your mom's so delightful. My mom says, enjoy podding.
Your mom's delightful. You know what? That's my new thing. We're podding.
Oh, God.
We're going to do the British thing. This is a potty.
If you have a superhero skill, it is finding, without ever being wrong, infallibly finding the thing that I hate the most, zeroing in on it, and then beating it into my skull.
Yeah, I revel in it.
You do. It's amazing. I made no indication to you whatsoever that I absolutely hate it when she says that. And you knew immediately, oh, that's what I'm going to say to him forever now.
Yeah.
We might be connected by hate.
I'll take it. It's an emotion. That's at least moving in the right direction.
I was going to say you are down a rung from obligation down to hate.
I think it's up.
We'll agree to disagree.
Song number 5, Hypermisophon. God damn it, you say it.
Track number 5, Hypermisophoniac. You illiterate weirdo.
This song highlights the idea that this might be a fucking goof, I think even better than the last one. So his explanation for this song is there are people that have a hatred of certain sounds, and certain sounds drive them to tears. It's a sad affliction. I was kind of obsessed with it, and I thought, what if we took annoying music sounds and tried to make something beautiful out of them? I don't think we succeeded, but we definitely got the annoying part down.
Yep, he admits it. This is garbage.
If your idea was to be intentionally annoying, fucking nailed it. He did what you accused me of doing, my superhero skill.
Right.
He also has it. The real shame of it is, Some of the kind of aborted piano lines reminded me a lot of Cash Grab Complications on the Matter.
Yes, a song that I assume nobody listening to this podcast has ever heard, but it's a great song.
Yes. It's a song he did with Beck on an EP right after Icky Thump. It was the White Stripes' last official release. So this is what Beck does. He takes annoying music or annoying sounds and he makes something beautiful out of them. Jack did not do that.
No. In this instance, he's singing about robbing a bank with nowhere to go. The bank obviously is yours and my wallet, and he has nowhere to run because it's so incredibly obvious this is utter nonsense.
This is one of those songs that people say they like to sound smart.
Yeah, and nobody likes this. It includes his children's toys. You know that, right?
Yeah, it's Son's fidget cube.
Sure.
Which he triple tracked.
As if it wasn't annoying enough, we need it 3 times over. I do want to say the only note that I wrote down for this whole thing was, fuck this song in the face. And I think that accurately depicts my emotion every time I hear it.
That's, I think, what I wrote for the next one. Track number 6, Ice Station Zebra. This song sucks.
Yeah.
He sings nothing, he just raps the whole song, and rap is not Mr. Gillis's strong point.
No. It's embarrassing.
He also starts a line with "here's an example," which I think needs to go on our list of hated song tropes. Rage Against the Machine did that in one of their songs, too.
Yeah, it's like somebody's writing a poor persuasive in the middle of the song. For the following reasons. Reason the first.
Yes.
I was most frustrated with the beginning of the song when he starts rapping, because I think one of the most difficult aspects to rap is how to start. We really ripped into Nicki Minaj, but she looks like a lyrical genius compared to what happens in here. So this is how this song starts. Hear me out, it ain't easy, but I'll try to explain. That might as well be, hello, my name is Jack, and I like to play music in a major way.
Oh yeah, it's the 80s thing where everyone in the rap group steps forward and introduces themselves with one fun fact about themselves. Is that where you got fun facts?
No.
Okay.
Fun facts are the intellectual property of the Why I Hate This Album podcast, specifically the founder and sole proprietor, Garrett Harvey.
Whoa.
What?
I thought we were doing this together, man.
We do the podcast together, but technically I own it and you're my employee.
This is our last podcast, folks.
Oh no, you are contractually obligated to do this forever.
What?
Yeah. What did you think you signed?
I had Brad read it.
Tim,
God,
Brad is not a lawyer.
Brad!
I can't believe you had him be your lawyer.
I didn't have...
I mean, he's represented me on multiple lawsuits, but
Wait,
I have not won any of them. But no, that was not a partnership agreement. You're just shy of indentured slave. Now, outside of the podcast, not at all. You're not a Brad. I can't cane you.
But I would like to point out you've caned me before.
Oh, sure. I just mean legally.
Oh, God, did I let you voluntarily cane me?
Yes.
God damn it, Brad! Back to this shitty song. The title is based on a 1963 spy novel. I'm just reading off facts because there's nothing to say about this. It's rap, it's not good. It's one of the most obvious missteps I've ever seen somebody make.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. Fun facts about Ice Station Zebra. Not an official fun fact, just sort of interesting. Based on a novel, there was a film in the 60s, I think, late 60s, of the same name that shared some of the story. But this was beloved by Mr. Howard Hughes. It is rumored that Mr. Hughes, billionaire reclusive that he was, watched this movie 150 times in a row on a loop. And I have a feeling that that might have something to do with the same reason that's appearing in this Jack White album. My point is that Howard Hughes was a crazy person, and I think Jack White might be as well.
Are you saying that Jack White has 6-inch long fingernails and wears Kleenex boxes for shoes?
I don't know what he does at home. I mean, he might be sitting on a giant mountain of dog feces.
After listening to this song, my mom had this to say. He should really just play one song per song. And god damn it, I thought about stealing that and claiming it was my thought, because that perfectly sums up this album.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Tim's mom's hot take.
Whenever we got to this song and I told her that it was song 6, she was genuinely shocked. She thought we'd listened to like 20 different songs already.
There's a weird jangly piano interspersed between his raps. At one point, I think it plays the Kit Kat jingle.
I didn't catch that.
And then at another point, it might have been lifted from the Jamiroquai song Virtual Insanity. Those of you living in the late 90s will remember Jamiroquai.
Track 7, Over and Over and Over. For my money, this is the best song on the album.
It is my second favorite song on the album.
I would still put it mid to bottom tier for his career in general. I like the general beat. The guitars are fairly good throughout. There's a lot of good shit musically in this song.
That is to say, it's a song.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Whenever we saw him live in Dallas, he did a good job with this.
It works very well live. Mm-hmm. Not shockingly, he's been trying to record this song for like a decade. Tried to do it with the White Stripes, tried to do it with the Raconteurs, tried to do it with Jay-Z at one point. That really doesn't make any sense. But nothing on here does. We're living in a bizarro world where this man's living in a cave filled with dog excrement and trying to start some sort of cult.
Or possibly Fifth Company.
He could just be gloating about his business acumen. But I think I really want to lean on this cult thing.
It makes the most sense. Very few companies are in need of cots for their employees. Granted, we do have some sort of room that's basically just lined with cots, because whenever our workers don't finish, the boys in the lab, they don't go home.
Yeah, I want to be really clear, though, because we've made references to people who have rooms.
It is not one of those rooms. This is a bedroom.
Well, again, I think you're not being quite clear enough. We've really hammered the rooms thing. So, once again, it's just got cots and a bucket.
See, that also kind of makes it sound like a horrible room, though.
Hey, I'm not saying it's a pleasant room, but you got to incentivize these guys to get their goddamn work done on time. Otherwise, you're going to go sit in the room.
The song that we're talking about, the lyrics, kind of like Bob Dylan, how he throws in a lot of literary references. This has a lot of literary references, Greek mythology. There's Sisyphus, René Descartes, but it doesn't have that other Dylan-y part where it then is a good song on top of it. You've got lyrics like, "The wind is blowing, volcanoes blowing, my lungs are blowing."
You mean the chorus?
Yeah, that is the chorus.
I would put it more succinctly and say, unlike Bob Dylan, here he just seems to be rattling off things he read in a book that are largely unconnected.
My fibula and femur hold the weight of the world.
I think he just learned about those bones.
Nah, Jack knows his bones, all 206 of them.
That actually does make sense. I feel like he is a man that knows his bones.
I guarantee you, he owns a human skeleton and displays it prominently somewhere.
I would bet everything I own on that.
Yeah.
He is a skeleton man.
Track 8, Everything You've Ever Learned.
Welcome to Everything You've Ever Learned.
What the shit is this?
It's so confusing.
Yeah, it seems like he's merged with some sort of 1980s computer. And again, it's more spoken word because apparently that's what Jack White records are now.
I mean, that's what I always think of when I think of Jack White. I mean, doesn't he sing a little in this?
He does at the end, but there's this intro spoken word computer bullshit.
I mean, we should be real specific here. It opens with a voiceover saying, "Hello, and welcome to Everything You've Ever Learned, sponsored by..." And to me, every time I heard, "Hello, and welcome to Movie Phone. If you know the first 3 digits of the name of the movie you would like to see, press them now." I have a theory on this, and it goes a little deep. They do start actually eventually playing music. It sounds to me a lot like the intro to Broken Boy Soldier by the Raconteurs. Mm-hmm. I am almost certain, I am almost 100% certain I have heard this song before sung over the intro to that song when seeing the Raconteurs live.
Oh.
These are made up lyrics.
That might be. Whenever we saw the Raconteurs once, he played a super long extended intro that you called in the first 15 seconds was going to be Broken Boy Soldiers, and then he didn't get around to playing that song for upwards of 10 minutes.
And Jack is, if you've seen him as many times as we have, he does this all the time. He will just ad-lib new ridiculous lyrics. And in a live performance, you can do that because nobody really cares. They're in the moment. You're playing live. There's an atmosphere. There's an enjoyment to what's happening, an experience, if you will. But when you're sitting alone, staring at Tim across the room in your studio apartment, listening to this album,
yeah,
it's
my
super
mom
clear.
Crying in the corner, begging for us to turn it off.
Asking if she can just please go into the spare bedroom. It's very obvious that he's just made this up on the fly and was like, wow, we got it first take. At best, this is bad slam poetry. And I quote, Do you want everything? Then you can have everything. But what is everything worth? Great job.
Yeah, this song really asks the hard questions. Other than those, do you wish for nothing? Do you want to see it all? Do you want to question everything? Do you want to start a fire? That one's a bit of an outlier. Do you want to learn?
It actually reminded me a little bit of a bad impression of Jim Morrison, because it's just sort of a lilting guitar in the background, and you've got a maniac just speaking from the top of his head and hoping everybody's going to be super into it. And that brings me to the end of this song and a new theory that I have. Not only is he starting a cult, which I wholeheartedly believe and will be starting that rumor online in every way, shape, or form I can, I think he might be dealing with a dissociative personality disorder here. Towards the end of the song, it seems that he's doing a call in response to himself that ends with him repeatedly screaming "shut up" at himself.
The shut up and learn, shut up. To me, that came off like the Linkin Park song where he just screams shut up when I'm talking to you over and over and over again. It has that sort of tantrum quality to it.
I thought we had decided that he was talking to himself in that instance as well.
I believe so.
Oh, absolutely then. This poor bastard's breaking down in front of us, and now it's tough to say, did he always have these other voices inside his head? Perhaps, Tim, perhaps. And let's just give him a name. I'm going to go with Lyle. Perhaps Lyle has been living inside Jack White all of these years, and Jack has finally lost control, and what we're getting here is Lyle. And Jack can't stand it, and he bursts forth at the end of the song and begins screaming, "Shut up, Lyle! This music is garbage." It's almost the only way to explain why not only is this a severe departure from previous Jack White experiences, it seems to be a fervent effort to do the exact opposite of everything you've come to expect, nay, love, from this artist.
Now, is Lyle's last name Gillis, or did he also take the last name White?
I suspect Gillis.
Okay.
Or possibly a third thing that we don't even know about. Lyle Caruthers, maybe. It's tough to know.
Fair enough.
So maybe all of this hatred and vitriol is not for you, Jack. We apologize. We understand now. It's all Lyle. Lyle Caruthers, you're on notice. He's
the real Brad of Jack's organization.
That might be even an insult to Brad, and that guy eats toilet soup. I'm not going to let Jack off the hook just yet, but it's a good theory, and you know me. I'm just here to get down to brass tacks. I want to know what's going on here, and It could be one Lyle Caruthers.
Track number 9, Respect Commander.
She commands my respect.
This song opens with a very interesting instrumental, not traditional Jack White, but that's okay. We're not looking for a repeat album before violently switching to some sort of nonsense song filled with video game sound effects.
Yeah, I thought the initial guitar sounded kind of like Devil's Haircut, and it actually, the very last couple of bars of the song, it comes back to that. The instrumental part of this that you're referencing, it's not drum sampling. However, it does seem to be actual music being played live, intentionally created to sound like samples.
Yes.
It almost sounds like he's looping those Winston's or James Brown songs and adding noises over it, but it's not. This is being played by people in his band.
Incredibly capable people. At best, this sounds like a Dust Brothers song. If you don't know Dust Brothers, guys, go watch Fight Club. They did the whole soundtrack.
Or Odelay.
So once again, you have to suffer through 2 minutes and 15 seconds before we get the opening line to the song. She commands my respect. That's too long. You cannot ask somebody to listen to over 2 minutes of nonsense in the hope that at some point it might turn into a song.
Live, that totally works. But here, it's them just fucking around, trying to find the right sound for the song, which is fine, but once you find that song, fucking cut the rest.
Yeah, it's not like somebody didn't want to do the work. It's not on acetate. It's all digital.
And it would be fine if it was on acetate, because he's shown he doesn't mind doing that work.
Yeah, he appreciates it. Well, Jack does. Lyle can't be bothered.
That's true.
Get that cat back in here. Have him cut and paste away at this thing. Seems to be pretty good at, well, he's terrible at editing, but he certainly knows his way around a Control-X.
There are 3 separate synthesizer players on this song.
Oh, good. When one just isn't enough.
But this song ends with a very classic Jack White guitar solo that almost makes the whole thing worth it. The lyrics may be about how he enjoys his sex to come at surprising times when he's least expecting it. And I
know
quote,
what you're talking about.
"She's coming up behind me in the morning loving when I least suspect it. Every single thing about the situation says I can't be wrong, and every time she gets the satisfaction, I want her to control me all night long." I also suspect that Jack White is into some sort of submissive bondage thing.
The whole song, he's saying how much she commands his respect. Now, this could go a number of ways. Was this song written under duress? Is there a woman that's got him bound up with the ropes and knots and such, and he has to profess his love for her? Could be. Is there another personality? Let's call her Sandra. This one's a lady. And in that instance, this lovin' he's talking about, he's just talking about how Jack likes jacking in the morning.
Ew.
Well, none of it's very delightful, Tim. I'm going to be real honest with you.
Let me give you some Sample Genius lyrics comments.
Okay.
The first good song of 2018.
Wow.
Here's the fun one. Jack White making respecting women sexy again.
This comment brought to you by one Lena Dunham.
I don't know if she would approve of this because, again, I don't actually know what's going on in this song.
You know what? I doubt she could even be bothered. I sent her over a copy. I didn't hear back one word.
Yeah.
She's got a lot going on. Her production company just split up with her longtime partner. Whole thing. I don't want to get into it.
Fair
we
enough.
split a pint of Haagen-Dazs last weekend. She told me all about it. Suffice it to say, Leans has a full plate.
Yeah, and that's fair. But I can't imagine she's into this album.
No, I mean, I'm not into this album. And my walls are covered with Jack White paraphernalia.
My mom thought that this was, and I quote, a lot of noise, maybe?
She's not wrong.
After a week of listening to the way that I speak and listening to Jack White, she sort of starts to emulate my nonsense.
Oh, that's not good.
Track 10, Esmeralda Steals the Show.
What melancholy magic has turned a multitude.
Obviously, there's one very clear reason to hate this song, and I'll let you address that. Before you touch on it, I'm going to address why I can't stand this song. While not identical, the opening to this song is strikingly similar to the opening of R.E.M's Everybody Hurts. And it goes on and on and on. Just sing the song. Please sing the song.
Or
I just
any
wanted
song.
to hear the
Sing
song.
any song.
Right, and that brings us to the most obvious reason why you should hate this.
Yeah.
And Tim?
More goddamn spoken word tracks. This time it seems to be sort of a fairy tale.
I don't think so.
He sneaks in some complaining about people being on their phones constantly, presumably at his shows.
Right, which he put a firm stop to.
Yeah. Fools desire distraction and not take to heart their faces to their gadgets fall south.
I mean, if you managed to squeeze that into a song, I'd be completely okay with it. But we should be, like, really, really clear. He's not singing, he's speaking.
Yeah. I think this whole song is about Meg and how Jack saw the White Stripes as being more based around her.
So that's the obvious interpretation. And
Well, rude, but okay, go on.
No. The second half, actually, we got to work on your self-esteem, buddy. The second half of that sentence is, and you would be completely within your right to believe that was the case, because it seems so glaringly obvious in an album filled with nonsense and mystery that finally, at least I understand what he's talking about. But according to Mr. White, that is not the case. Apparently, he thought of this concept, we'll call it, while attending his children's recitals repeatedly and always daydreaming, because apparently they're not very good, about one of the children just going up there and doing something completely inappropriate and capturing the entire room. So this is his fantasy of a child wearing no shoes, addressing the audience and calling them absurd.
But I think that also works with the Meg thing.
I think your interpretation makes total
Yeah.
sense, Tim. I'm just telling you what Jack White told me.
Right, but he didn't write this. Lyle did.
And this is what's so interesting about multiple personalities, is where does one start and where does one end? While Lyle wrote this song about those children, it's Jack who's influencing the content, which is so obviously about his former bandmate, wife, and potentially sister.
It's unclear.
But what is clear is that this is the third spoken word track on this album?
Yes, but thankfully, unless it's strictly a spoken word album, we will not get a fourth spoken word song, right? Right? Garrett, say right.
Sure.
Okay. With that in mind, track 11, Get in the Mind Shaft. More goddamn spoken word. Did you notice? So there's a digital release of this, and then there are 9 separate versions that appear on vinyl. I don't know which one you have.
I don't either, because I have never heard it.
I got version B2779 as the digital release. It's like he's doing a goddamn fun fact here. The first half is spoken word, and then the second half is robots playing terrible robot music and Peter Framptoning around.
Yeah, there's some flaming lips in there as well.
Sure. The bad flaming lips, though.
I would say misused flaming lips. This whole thing is almost completely cements my idea that this guy's got a bunch of voices in his head. First, there's the part that's on every version of the song. Can you hear me now? Get in the mine shaft. Am I invisible to you? Come inside. Come inside. Can you hear me now? Deep inside me now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets a little weird at the end, but you have to think about it from the context of his psyche, not his body.
Whenever he says mind shaft, get in the mind shaft,
That's where he keeps his personalities.
Sure. But every time he said that, it sounded to me like he was saying get in the pawn shop. I don't know why.
Tim.
Obviously, I was constantly reminded of that stupid Sublime song.
Which is not a Sublime song, by the way.
Sure, but their version. I can't believe I'm going to say this.
Oh my God.
Better song. It is a song, so it is by definition a better song than this.
Yeah, no, that's true. Boy, what a dark day for the show.
I know. What a dark day for our lives.
So as you mentioned, there are different versions of this song, and I read through a lot of them, and I stumbled upon even more proof that contained within this mind shaft is a series of personalities fighting to get out and make bad records. And I quote, and this one is probably not the version you heard, direct quote from the album. "It's as if I have been woken up by whispers, the whispering of voices all around me. I can't make out what they're saying. Some people would call it ghosts or some kind of hallucination. I don't know what I'm supposed to call it, and I've never told anybody about that."
Good God.
I mean, I don't even have to weave a tapestry of tales to understand what's going on here. This man hears voices. Lyle, give Jack back control. I mean, this could be somebody else. Clearly, Jack wrote that. He is reaching out for help so that he does not lose control and become full-time Lyle.
There's 9 versions of this. I fully believe, based on your theory, that there are 9 personalities living within him, and each one got a verse.
You've got Lyle, Sandra, as I mentioned, Jack, obviously, Kelly, Peter, Brutus, Macaulay.
There's a Meg, too, but it's a different Meg.
Yeah, Meg P., not Meg W.
Yeah, that's a real person.
Right, not a personality contained within the mine shaft. There's 2 more, Tim. There is Rufus and the Beast. There's always a beast when you're dealing with multiple personalities.
Yeah, if M. Night Shyamalan taught us anything, Shyamalan taught us anything.
We don't have time for this.
You want to move on?
Yeah, I think we must.
All right, track number 12, What's Done Is Done.
I just can't fight it no more. So
I'm going to guess that this is your favorite song in this.
This is my favorite song.
Yeah, I think it's one of the better songs just for its simplicity. It reminds me of when Jack did sort of straight country on the Bob Dylan Hank Williams compilation, or on Blunderbuss, or even Hotel Yorba. And it's good.
Yeah, it's a competent song with all of the pieces and parts that make music.
Sure. I will say it would be better without the, I'm quoting here, electric drums in the background.
Oh, sure. It's a low bar. But once again, we've got some really disturbing lyrics in here. Now, on the surface, you might say this is about the tragic end to a relationship that's either going to result in a murder or murder-suicide. But what I really think is going on, now that we have some insight into the mine shaft, this is a song about Jack attempting to murder his various personalities and reclaim control from Lyle. What's done is done. I just can't fight it no more. So I'm walking down to the store and I'm buying a gun. Okay, so we know that violence will be involved, but Here's the real clincher. Why do I feel that nothing is real and nobody is there to hear? Interesting. Something goes wrong and I can't hear the song because he loses control, obviously, that you used to sing in my ear. So I would propose to you that Jack's other personalities, Sandra, was a muse, the woman whom he professes his love to in the previous track. And she helped him to build this beautiful collection of music he has created. And he can no longer hear Sandra, and it's all Lyle. And finally, either you go or I go, and you hear a woman whisper, and it won't be me.
I think you hit the nail on the head here.
Clearly he's been trapped in the mine shaft, and it's a stinky shaft.
Yeah, well, it's got a throne made of feces that whoever's in charge gets to sit on.
Well, I mean, you think somebody's got a dog in that shaft?
Why would there not be a dog? Maybe one of his personalities is a Rufus or a Baxter, or even a Batman.
Not a Bat. Don't bring Batman into this. Wait, are you postulating that multiple personalities inside of a mind have to defecate?
Well, I mean, they've got to do something. Also, I'm postulating that one of them could be a puppy.
Right, I heard that part. I wasn't going to say anything because there wasn't a way that I couldn't insult you and address it.
Fair enough. Let's continue with that then. Track number 13, Humoresque.
It is telling that my second favorite song on this album was written in 1894 by Antonin Dvorak.
The weird story behind this song, it was originally phrased that it was written by Al Capone, which is not true. So it was written, as you said, by a Czech composer in the 1800s, and the lyrics were written by somebody named Howard Johnson.
Presumably the man that started that lovely line of hotels.
Of course. So Al Capone was in Alcatraz, and he somehow convinced his jailers to buy them instruments so that they could play prison music. And I guess he was a fan of this song and rewrote the lyrics, and Jack bought it for $19,000.
Yeah, that seems like a good use of his money.
I mean, it's fine. It's a good song. There's not a lot of bullshit on it. It's just vocals, piano, drums, acoustic guitar, maybe a little bass, but it's a song.
Well, Tim, it's more than a song to me. I have a personal connection to this song.
Really?
I thought I was losing my mind when I heard this song because I knew it. On first listen, I knew it. You know me. I try as hard as I can to bury the memories of my childhood beneath boulders of shame, sadness, and repression as best I can, because they need not be revisited.
Is it possible that you were raised in a prison a la Bane from that third Batman movie?
I'm not going to rule it out, and when you hear the story, you tell me. When I was in 4th grade, I auditioned for a Christmas musical. The auditions were run by our music teacher, and if you wanted to be in the musical, you had to give a live audition where she played piano and you sang to the song. In the 4th grade, I auditioned for a Christmas musical and sang this very song to a live piano accompaniment.
I am extremely surprised that you did not present a song that you had written.
That would have been incredible, but she had to have the sheet music.
You could have written some sheet music. Poorly,
You know, that it could have been possible. At the time, I could still read music. Boy, that would have been just audacious at best.
This is a song called Beautiful. Oh my God. Oh, what a horrifying little boy you were.
Sad to say, I did not get the part.
Oh.
Yeah, I was not good. But at least I sang this terrible song. Well, it's not terrible. It's actually my second favorite song on the album. This not very good song, my 4th grade little voice sang this song in front of my entire school because the auditions were held in an auditorium in front of everyone on a rainy day when no one could go out to recess for some reason. So everyone got to see just how bad I was at singing.
All right. On that sad note, let's be done with this album.
Yeah, let's move it right along. How did this thing do? I'm very curious.
This was the third album that Jack White has been associated with that has hit number 1 on the Billboard 200 list. They've all been
the third one in a row, I assume.
Yes, it is the third one in a row. They've all been his solo albums. Weirdly, he never had one with another band. I think Icky Thump got to number 2.
Yeah, that sounds right.
It was number 1 also in Canada. It didn't do so well in other countries. Number 5 on the Spicer hit parade, number 10 Dutch mega charts, and number 40 on the Danish hit listen. So,
Boy, you really just snuck in those Dutch mega charts, didn't you? You think I didn't hear that?
I couldn't figure out how many sales in the US or worldwide. Now, again, it's only been out for half a year. It sold 121,000 copies in the US in its first week, but I've got no other numbers.
And keep in mind, if you purchased a ticket to any one of his pre-sale shows, which all were sold before the album came out, coincidence, you were given a copy of this album, and it was built into the ticket price, so you bought that album.
It averaged 74 out of 100 on Metacritic. We don't have a Robert Christgau review this week. The last album he reviewed of Jack's was Blunderbuss.
Is there a chance that Christgau's retiring soon?
He hasn't really done too much since about 2010, 2012, somewhere in there.
Disappointing. We're going to have to find a new lunatic that reviews albums.
We could get my mom.
Oh my God. How much free time does she have? She already hates you, so it can't get much worse on that.
Yeah,
department.
but she really had a bad time with this. I don't know that I can convince her to ever listen to anything we do again. So on Amazon, there were 108 total reviews. It got 50% 5-star, 15% 1-star. And I have only one review. I suspect somebody that listens to this show wrote it to see if I would read it, and if so, well done. This is entitled Mind-Boggling Bonkers, and was written March 23rd, 2018, the very day this album came out. Imagine you are at a bar on a Friday night. Your friends told you that they would meet you for drinks, but one by one, they text you telling you they can't make it. The bar becomes more crowded and the music gets louder. The light of your phone becomes more tiring on your eyes. You look up to see a gorgeous, sexy woman staring at you from afar. You turn to see if anyone is behind you, but it becomes obvious that it is indeed you that she sees. She stands and walks towards you as your heart begins to beat harder and harder and the lump in your throat begins to swell. She leans over to your ear, but the soft tone of her voice just barely cuts through the music engulfing the room. As you make your pleasantries, you notice a disturbing glimmer off the whites of her eyes. She holds herself like a seductress, and you know in your heart that something isn't right. As your mind races to figure it out, she says the words you've always longed for a woman like her to say to you. Let's get out of here. She takes you to her apartment. It's simple, elegant, pristinely tidy, and it puts you on edge further. You take a few sips of a glass of wine she hands to you, but she begins to move closer. You both slip into the bedroom, and her tender lips press against yours. The most spectacular night of your life has just begun. Everything you wanted, and what you never expected, comes to fruition. After hours of lovemaking, you both drift off to sleep. The soft morning light kisses your eyes, and they creep open. You turn to see her next to you, and you feel at peace. As you turn back to the window and see the sun peeking through the sparse trees and power lines, she turns over and gives you that same off-putting look from the bar. She leans in for what you think is a morning kiss, but instead, she slits your throat. Your head can't move, but your eyes roll to see her with a large knife painted with your own blood. Your blood pools behind your ears as the life leaves your lungs. The only thought you have is, where was she keeping that knife? Now that is what this album did to me. Now, here's the fun part. That's a 5-star review, and 4 people on the internet found that helpful.
Okay, 1, that's a review somehow. 2, that was a 5-star review. And 3, how is that in any way helpful?
I assume those 4 people did not purchase it and were like, well, didn't get murdered by a lady today. That guy helped me out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So he feels as though that was a positive experience.
I guess.
Murder. Did you skip a part?
Nope. That is every word that was in this review.
I am shocked. I thought for sure they were this was all a big analogy for betrayal and being...
Yeah.
So after the vigorous night of lovemaking that was so great, what made it real great was that he was then killed. We need to figure out who wrote that and report them.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a Kyle T. If you know a Kyle T, because we don't want to get sued. If you know a Kyle...
That's too specific. We'll say K. Thomas.
If you know a K. Thomas... Boy, I'll tell you what, Tim, that's awful close to Lyle. Perhaps this was another escapee from the mineshaft.
Could be.
Boy, this has just been horrible. That's how it did. That's what people think. Is this album for anybody?
You know, I would say it's for Jack White completists, but you own everything he's ever done on vinyl, including things that there are 200 copies of worldwide. So
Yes.
I can't even say that. I think it's for Jack White fans that are even bigger Frank Zappa, Captain Beefheart fans. No, not even that, because this isn't as good as either of those things.
Not even close.
I don't know.
It's for robots. It's for people with potentially undiagnosed schizophrenia. Sycophants, because he needed a friend here.
We've mentioned this on a number of albums. Like this album, it needed a Garrett. Whenever I
Right.
come to you with my big ideas for the podcast and for new podcasts, you have no problem telling me that it's stupid and I shouldn't only be wearing socks when I introduce my business ideas to you or anyone. You're a good
Right.
friend in that one way. Not in the you crippled me for 8 months way, but you're honest.
That was a joke, Tim.
It was a joke that you crippled me, or you crippling me was a joke?
Technically, you crippled yourself. The oiling of the shoes was a joke.
Okay, we're gonna
was a
talk.
prank.
You know what? We're gonna talk about this off air.
I wish we wouldn't.
We have to.
Will you put on pants?
I'll put on my country shorts.
Tim, this is not a country episode. I have purposely avoided your suggestions for multiple country episodes in a row for that very reason. Honestly, I'm going to do another Creed just to get you back in those leather pants. It's just nice to see you properly covered.
I'm just dripping with sweat.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got to talc those pants. Back to the task at hand. Who knows who this is for? So let's move into final thoughts. This has not helped my opinion of this album.
No, that's fair. It hasn't helped mine either.
The sheer percentage of this album that isn't music alone should be enough to almost disqualify it from being a worthy candidate for this podcast. It's
Yeah.
just shy of 51%.
I didn't realize just how much of this wasn't music. There are a lot of good ideas on this album. There's some great stuff here. It's just so few, so far between. My mom was right. Every one of these songs is 6 different songs. He's been moving in this direction ever since probably 2007, but this is a huge leap from Lazaretto that I didn't want. I miss Meg.
We all miss Meg. It feels as though so much of this was contrarian just to be contrarian. Now, if it's Lyle at the helm, that at least makes some sense. Or Sandra, or Bucky, or Curtis, or Brutus, any of them, of the at least 9 personalities living inside the mine shaft.
Mm-hmm.
When push comes to shove, there's only one person you can blame, and that's Mr. Jack White.
Yeah, for losing
Jack,
control.
you're better than this. Well, right, exactly. Take your medicine.
Do you hate this album?
I don't know. Yeah, I think I do.
All right.
How about you? Do you hate it?
I do. God, I hate it.
You do. Yeah, you do. We got you there. Jacked you all the way there.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
He did all the heavy lifting. I was just in attendance. There's nothing else to be said. Jack, you're better than this, and God help you, I'm going to be there for the next album. You do this to me again, though. That's it. I will only ever see you live in concert.
The next time we have an album like this, it's going straight to the show. I'm not fucking listening to it on my own. I'm not giving it a chance.
So you're saying you're willing to forgive, but you will never forget.
That's right.
It's a mature approach. Hold a grudge against a man you've never met for giving you his greatest artistic efforts at the time.
If you've ever listened to any of Jack White's previous lyrics, the ones that make sense, I think he would be behind that.
You know what? I think you're 100% right. We're only doing what you taught us. Okay, that brings us to the end of the show. As always, guys, thanks for listening. We really appreciate the reviews we've been getting. If you haven't done it yet, jump on the old iTunes, give us a quick review. Facebook as well, they have a little review section. I didn't even know it until I saw that a whole bunch of them got aggregated. Thank you for the kind words, except for that one guy. But that's okay. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. The point being is we really do appreciate it, and it makes a big difference because it surfaces higher in the iTunes rankings, and that's how people learn about the show. So thank you very much. If you don't know what to say, there's a lot of great options. I'm personally partial to Tim's Arms Wide Open, and some of them have really, really been funny. Also, Tim's a Sucker is a great one. Tim's a Soul Sucker is a great one. If you want to reach out to us, tell us some albums you'd like to hear. You can either go to hatepod.com, click on the contact us in the upper left-hand corner, or straight from your old webmail browser, type in hatePodMail@gmail.com. That goes straight to us. Hit us up on Twitter, album hatepod. Hit us up on Instagram, hatepod. Facebook.com/hatepod. A million ways to get a hold of us, and we'll reply to every single thing you send us, whether you like it or not. This has been Why I Hate This Album. I am one of your hosts, Garrett Harvey.
I'm the other, Tim Richardson.
The riffs are too repetitive, the lyrics make no sense. All the songs are B-sides and the cover art's a mess. There's so much here to tear apart. Listen to it for a week. that week has passed, here's why I hate this album. Podcast with Tim and Garrett.